I am a travel journalist from a reputable travel magazine based in New York. I enjoy traveling to remote locations where few people have ventured. I have explored these locations and gathered the information for curious travelers. So, when I got a call from my boss to visit a remote area of Texas, I got excited. This is my first visit to Texas. I know Texas from an old horror movie, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That's all the idea I have got. So I was quite excited about visiting that place. From newspapers, I got to know that Barstow was a prosperous farming town, but now it has become a deserted place. No one would have expected the prosperous farming town of Barstow, Texas, to inevitably end up a haunted ghost town, back in the 1800s when it was 1,000 strong. However, in 1904, after the Pecos River Dam broke, severe droughts demolished all of the crops and devastated the Barstow economy. The dried-up town exists only in the form of memories, dilapidated buildings, and a dark legend that surrounds it with mystique. Many claims to have witnessed a group of robed specters, whose feet never touch the ground, floating around the dead town of Barstow. Nobody knows who they are or what they want. Some think they are heavenly bodies, while others believe they are members of the occult. They've been spotted hovering over surrounding fields, apparently congregating and conversing without making a sound. A new town has been made beside the old haunted ghost town, but very few people live here now. I found a small but clean hotel to live in for a few days. I was the only tenant in the hotel. After knowing my reason for coming, the hotelier told me about this famous haunted town story. After keeping my luggage in my hotel, I started my journey to explore the remote area of Texas's ghost town. I took my video camera and started my tour. After walking for a long time, suddenly I noticed a deserted-looking big garden, whose walls were broken with an iron gate in bad condition. I wanted to explore that garden, so I started walking toward the road, but after entering that place, I understood that this was not a garden at all, but rather an abandoned cemetery. Quite an old cemetery indeed. I found one stone oblique dated 1782. Another was in 1800. While looking at those stone coffins, I suddenly saw a big bat hanging from a tree. I didn't know a bat could be so huge. I saw only the smallest size bat, so that size freaked me out. I tried to escape that bat's touch on my body, so I jumped to the other side of the coffin.
You're afraid of bats, right?
I saw an old man sitting on a broken coffin, wearing a dusty black coat and pants. I didn't notice he was watching me for a while. Not really, but I'm not fond of bats either.
Why not? How much do you know about bats?
I didn't want to waste my time discussing bats, so I shortened my reply. Most of the bats I saw are fruit bats, and I also heard about those bats that bite small animals and suck their blood.
And don't you know about those vampires who are disguised as bats and suck blood from humans?
Do you mean Writer Bram Stoker's Dracula? That's a story, not real. I was quite bored with his interest, so I changed the topic. Do you live here in this area?
Yes, we have lived here for 4 generations, and my father was the priest in the only church here. I'll show you my entire ancestor's stone here.
I had no interest in seeing his belongings, so I politely thanked him and walked toward the main road to my hotel. I asked the manager about the old man I spotted in the cemetery.
I believe you are referring to Tom Windsauer? Yes, I know him, and everyone here does, but when was he released from the hospital? That's news.
Released from the hospital?
Yes, he was admitted to the lunatic asylum in the city for a few years, and the sad thing was that even his father died in the same asylum that he was admitted to. Maybe lunacy has its own inherited disease.
I feel sad about him. That night, his voice and the old cemetery stayed with me so much that I dreamed about them. I saw he was standing by an old gravestone looking down, but that's not what got my attention. It was his skin. It was ripped and scratched. and looked like it was rotting away. His clothes were muddy and ripped. Not only that, but they looked quite old. As I kept walking, the old man turned to me. When he did, I was shocked by what I saw. He had no eyes, his face had cuts on it, and his hair looked like it was falling out. As I looked at him in shock, he started to walk over to me slowly. It looked like he was dragging one of his legs, but I didn't stay to find out. I acted quickly and ran to him. In the woods, looking back every so often to see if he was still following me. I kept running, but it looked like he was catching up with me, making me panic. I panicked as I was running. I tripped over a rock that was sticking out of the ground. I hit my head on the ground, knocking myself out for about a minute or more, and as I opened my eyes, it was morning. In the dining room, I saw a few local people gathered and arguing about something. I asked the waiter about that.
Last night, one local farm owner's 2 calves were found dead, and what the veterinary doctor said shocked them a lot.
Why?
The doctor found no blood on those calves. It looks like some kind of animal or something sucked their blood from their body. A few years back, this kind of incident happened. And then yesterday, it started again. They are quite frightened.
That news gave me a little bit of a chill. After all, Texas is new to me and I am also in a famous ghost town, but this was such a bright morning that a scary feeling started vanishing when I started walking toward the beautiful cornfield. I started walking beside the Pecos River path, but not again. From my eyesight, I saw Tom Windsor standing at the edge of the field. I tried to ignore him because I didn't want to talk about bats and the old cemetery on this beautiful sunny morning. But it was my luck that he saw me clearly.
Good morning, how are you?
Good morning. I am fine. How about you?
Sorry, yesterday I forgot to introduce myself. I am Tom Windsor. What is your name?
I said my name.
Did you hear about the mysterious deaths of 2 calves?
Yes, I heard that the news in the hotel may be some kind of unknown animal killing those poor calves.
Were the blood-sucking bats?
He began his bat love, not again. I tried to change the topic. Isn't it a beautiful cornfield?
Oh, I forgot to tell you. Please have a look at my house. I am inviting you to my house. After all, you are the new guest in our town, and it would be my honor if you came to my house.
I am here to explore the town, so I don't have any problem seeing his house. I just ignore that matter. He was a lunatic patient. With a very warm gesture, he guided me towards his house. After walking for half an hour, we came to the edge of the river, where the thick jungle started. I didn't know if anybody could live here. It's so lonely and deserted looking. Then he showed me his house. This is not a house, but rather an old-fashioned castle, very old indeed, and all the past glory is gone. It has a name too, written on a marble stone plate. Barwick Hall. He opened the big entrance iron gate with very cheerful manure.
I am living here all alone in the house. I am so happy. After so many years, a guest came.
Are you living alone in this big castle? Don't you have any relatives here?
No, I am the only child of my parents, and my father was the only child of his parents.
We walked towards the house. There I was looking from the chaise window, and soon detected the object for which, for some time, my eye had been in search. Barwick Hall was a large, quaint house, of that cagework fashion known as black and white, in which the bars and angles of an oak framework contrast, black as ebony, with the white plaster that overspreads the masonry built into its interstices. This steep-roofed Elizabethan house stood in the midst of park-like grounds. Grounds of limited size, but made imposing by the old man's noble stature. Trees that now cast their lengthening shadows eastward over the sward. From the declining sun we drew up at the door. I got out and had a good look at the front of the castle. It was a large and depressing mansion with signs of long neglect. Great wooden shutters, in the old fashion, were barred outside, across the grass, and even nettles were growing thick in the courtyard, and a thin moss streaked the timber beams. The plaster was discolored by time and weather and bore great russet and yellow stains. The gloom was increased by several grand old trees crowded close to the house. There was but little light in the hall, and that little lost itself in darkness in the background. It was very spacious and lofty, with a gallery running around it. This, when the door was open, was visible at 2 or 3 points. Almost there, dark, my new acquaintance led me across this wide hall into the room destined for my reception. Mr. Windsor offered me coffee. While drinking coffee, I saw some large hand-painted portraits. He said those are his ancestors' pictures. While looking at those old paintings carefully, I noticed something unusual in those faces. Their eyes, ears, and chins are quite different in shape, like the shapes of a bat. That thought came to my mind within a second. Maybe that is where that thought came from. He talked so much about bats. From where we were sitting, I saw a locked room whose windows were broken. From that window, I saw a large number of iron cages, very old looking. I pointed at those cages.
Those were used to keep dangerous wild animals. You know, the old-fashioned private zoos.
Yes, I know. I left his castle after a few conversations about his ancestors' glorious past history. I started walking to gather more information about the old town. While eating dinner, the hotelier remembered to tell me not to open doors and windows, as the mysterious animals could enter the room. I completely forgot about it because I was gone from the morning until the evening. I thanked him for remembering me. At around 3 o'clock at night, suddenly I woke up. I couldn't understand why this happened, but immediately I noticed the window I closed before sleeping was partly open, and through the window, the moon's light was entering the room. And through the light, what I saw froze me into fear. A very big bat is flapping around my bed. I was in such a shocking state of mind that I couldn't understand what to do next. Suddenly, that bat started flying towards me, targeting my face within a second. I hit the bat's head with my full power with an iron rod that I bought for jungle tracking in the evening. That bat flew through the window. I saw some blood drop on the room's floor. The next morning, while having my breakfast, I told the hotelier about what happened last night. He became shocked upon hearing this. While we were talking, 5 local residents came to him and informed him that Tom Windsor had died last night. They found his dead body in the morning near the edge of the river. His head was broken, and he had a bad habit of walking at night. Maybe, because of the darkness, he fell down the mountain on his way home.